Eddie, what do we do? What do you see should be the next steps, and maybe, you know, a timeline?
Well, one of the things I think Karen said was that banks are regulated, they're governed by all these different agencies. And in that governance, there are certain things that they just can't do, called the lender laws. They're bound by those lender laws, and they can't advise a individual business owner, or for that matter, I don't think a mortgage lender, in how to go about making that particular loan, or what to do with the business more specifically to make that business successful to be able to pay that loan. For that reason, I think that what's been fancied around is that non-bank financial institutions, particularly the not-for-profit sector, are governed by those regulations. And they can, in fact, do things that banks can't. I'll give you a case in point. One of the first loan programs that I got involved in when I was the president of the Minority Business Council was the Urban Enterprise Loan. It was a state-funded loan program where the state provided the St. Louis region, and in fact the Kansas City region, with $1 million each a year to loan money in upwards of $100,000 at a 5% interest rate to businesses, small businesses, that needed those funds. Now, the Urban Enterprise Loan Program also took a subordinate position. That means they took a second position to a commercial bank, and one of the criteria was that you had to match the UEL, or the Urban Enterprise Loan, with a commercial bank or with your own collateral. And so it made it easier for the banks, who, by the way, and I'm going to say this because I have anything to be holding anyone either. I'm not employed by anyone but myself now. Banks want to carry zero risk, and when you walk with that attitude, I don't think you're looking to make a loan, at least not to a person that needs one. Okay, so with that in mind, the Urban Enterprise Loan Program took a subordinate position which made it comfortable for the bank to participate in such activity. That was what you call leverage. It leveraged the bank to participate in a small loan for small businesses. We have these non-bank financial institutions already in our community, Justine Petersen being one of them. I think that the largest loan that you can lend is $35,000.
Well, not through the CDFI.
Okay.
We can go higher with our community development financial institutions.
Great. I think that for the small businesses, particularly those that are approaching the $3 to $5 million area, they need to have as much as $250,000 loan. And so what we need, I think, is these small non-bank financial institutions involved with the banks somehow to maybe create a loan fund, maybe supported by the banks and administered by organizations like Justine Petersen. Linking then with the business support organizations in town, like CAB, who can advise businesses on what they should do to run their businesses better, be better equipped to get a loan. And I couldn't agree with Jose more. Education is the key. And that's what we do at CAB. In fact, I want to just leave you with a quote. I generally don't do this. I generally leave this quote with 8th graders. But it really... It really is applicable here as well. And I tell 8th graders all the time that it pays to be educated, and guess what? It costs to be stupid. Okay? And so, what I mean by that is that, of course, if you don't know, you don't know, but you can learn. And so, I hope I redeemed myself. But at any rate, that's what I see as being needed. You know, I think that it's not going to be overnight. This kind of thing is going to take time because we've got banks maybe coming into untethered water for their part. But those of us who know how to administer these programs, give you a case in point. I had no banking experience in 1996, I think it was. We assumed this loan program from the state of Missouri. Zero banking experience. A lot of common sense, but no banking experience. At that time, the general counsel of the organization and I put this loan program together, administered the program, got a bank to look after the receipt of the proceeds of the loan, and we worked with the SLDC, by the way, to make sure all the underwriting was done properly. We let, over a 3-year period, over $3 million in loans. 33 loans to be exact, only 3 defaults in a 3-year period. Why? Because we were working with those individuals to let them know what they should do in order to run their business in an effective way. We told them, I personally told them, this is the only chance you're going to get. You blow this one, it won't come for a long time to come. So those people made sure that they paid us back that money. It was not a grant, it was a loan. I think they appreciated the fact that the low interest rate connected with that loan. And so what should we do? I think we should leverage that ability again, maybe with a pool of funds from banks, or maybe even starting with one bank who would be bold enough to take that step. Allow Justine Petersen, who has credibility and who has knowledge and skills in this area, to work with an organization like ours, CAB, to make those loans to individuals and show them that it can happen, and then leverage other banks to participate. The one thing I like about that model is that it's different than the model that we've had before. Before, we've had the government stepping in, and the government is not a banking institution, to make loans and all kinds of things. We have the not the FDIC, but the SBA guarantee. We have all kinds of programs through the federal government. However, if it weren't for that, we wouldn't have what we have. But I think it should go the other way. We should get the banks involved in a private sector endeavor and have them work with not-for-profit organizations to get these loans out to these small businesses who desperately need them. One thing that I'll say, in addition to that, is just to show you how the lack of access to capital can impact a community. I want to read this to you because the fact, these are compelling facts. And the fact that African Americans are still competing on an uneven playing field is demonstrated by some statistics. I'm going to go back now to 1992, where only 5% of the businesses in St. Louis were owned by African Americans, a substantially lower proportion than the population ratio. Furthermore, as recently as 1992 and back to 1987 and 1992, the area's minority firms hired less than 1% of the available African American worker. And this contributed to the growing disparity between white and African Americans in Missouri in, guess what, categories of income and wealth. If you have poor people, and in St. Louis, the majority of the individuals in the St. Louis area are black, if you have them not engaged in the employment of the community, it pulls everybody down. What we're trying to do is find a way that all boats will float and that we all prosper. If a person is gainfully employed, and you've heard it, small business is the backbone of the American economy. You've heard that over and over again. Well, if that's the case, we need to have small businesses who provide that 5 or 10 jobs or that 20, 25 jobs in the community. We need to help them grow and develop. If we don't, we're doomed for failure. Doomed for failure. If we do, we will help everyone grow. We will be able to pay those mortgages. We will be able to go out and buy cars. We will be able to take care of our families, put food on our table, pay our taxes, and do the right thing. I think 99% of the people in the American economy want to do that. I heard a report last night, and I'm going to stop with this, on 60 Minutes, where it talked about mortgage owners, people who make loans from banks, are underwater now. Did anybody else see that report? They're walking away from these mortgages. It's just going to exacerbate the problem that Clifton talked about. But, you know, it's kind of interesting. As I looked at that, I had to think to myself, it deserves them right to have people walking away from those loans that they cannot afford to pay. Now, understand that these are people that could afford to pay the loans, but they found themselves underwater with a home, living in a home that they're paying a mortgage on that maybe is $250,000, but is rated on the market to be worth $125,000. That picture's upside down. I'm walking away.
Good luck.
I think that I've opened up Pandora's box with that. But I think it's an interesting phenomenon. And, you know, before, financial institutions, particularly banks, has had the upper hand. maybe that's changing a